Hi everyone, welcome to the session of our web series Fireside Chat with Champions, in which we interview global business leaders asking them crowdsourced questions relevant to biggest challenge we face today, COVID-19 and its impact on various aspects of business and the way we can steer ourselves in current uncertainties. Today we have a special guest with us, Iim Fahima Jachja. Iim is founder and chief executive officer, Queenrides, an online-offline women empowerment platform focusing on four pillars: road safety, economic empowerment, leadership, and family. It has a 200,000 strong community in Indonesia and is now a collaboration platform for the public and private sector, NGOs, and government. In 2018, Queenrides was selected by the World Economic Forum as a leading startup in the ASEAN region. Iim has formerly active in the digital advertising industry and was founder and chief executive officer for Virus Communication, which brought digital advertising to Indonesia as early as in 2005. She was also CEO of Virtual Consulting, which owns masikakamu.com with 20 million paid subscribers, and Gila Motor Media with the most engaging online-offline motorbike community with 700,000 members. Iim was honored as a young global leader by World Economic Forum and is recipient of international awards and honors, including named in the list of 10 international young creative entrepreneurs by British Council, among 25 best young entrepreneurs in Asia by Business Week magazine, among 10 ASEAN entrepreneurs by ASEAN Entrepreneurs Community. She's a global speaker and has been covered across globe by a lot of media houses. Thanks, Iim, for accepting our invitation. I would request you to let our viewers know a little bit more about you and your areas of interest and activity. Floor is yours, Iim.
Thank you, Deepak, and also thank you for the opportunity for having me here and for connecting all the global leaders around the world. Currently, I'm focusing on my social business. Before, I'm more into pure business. I mean, I'm running. I was running a music company. I have a media company, and now I'm focusing on my new venture, Queenrides, which we're focusing on women empowerment. Queenrides, I've been established for about 5 years, and right now we have around 400,000 women all over Indonesia joining the platform. And before we start the platform with the issue about road safety for women, but right now we have four pillars, as you mentioned, that we're also focusing on women economic empowerment, road safety, family, and also the leadership. And currently during this situation, this COVID-19, we decided to switch a bit the way we approach women. If before we have a lot of face-to-face discussion, empowerment, now we're more shifting all the communication to online. So we still manage all the communication and all the empowerment to thousands of women, and we also keep motivating them and train them, and also making sure that they still able to run the business properly and able to cope this situation. So that's the thing that I'm doing right now in Indonesia, besides taking care of my family.
That's awesome, and very humble way of putting such a big things you are doing. So congratulations for doing such an awesome job. And this brings us to our first question. So you know that actually, like, you are active globally. So you have been at Davos, you have been at Tianjin, at World Economic Forum, at ASEAN Secretariat, at ADB. I would like to understand from you that how do you see the social entrepreneurship and the impact activities, getting positive or negative post-COVID, and what is going to be the impact of this pandemic on the social sector?
I think first we need to shift our mindset. We need to see the crisis from a different point of view. All this time we think that COVID is the cause of the crisis. But actually what I see here, COVID is not the cause. Rather, it shows us that all this time we don't have a proper economic system. We don't have a proper health system. The wealth distribution didn't go to everyone, not everyone getting the same access. So, for example, in Indonesia, 60% of the economy is actually supported by micro business. And that micro business with a 60% supported economy, it employs around 69% of the total employment. But what happened during crisis is the micro business hit the hardest. So right now, in 2 months, the unemployment rate is around 2 million. So it's quite big challenge for the country and for the economy. And what I see, the position of the social business here is actually to bridge the gap between the government and the poor. The micro business is fixing the system that didn't go well by the government. But unfortunately, I think this is something that I see globally, not only in Indonesia, that most of social business, they have wrong mindset. I mean, for example, I met many socialpreneurs who put aside the business element. I mean, they work more like a social worker. They forget the business part. So this is what I believe on when I run Queenrides, because this is a social and business, something that can get along together, and that kind of mindset that should be applied to all the socialpreneurs rather than focusing on impact only. And when they're focusing on impact only, they don't create a good economy. So the question is, how can you help others if you didn't have enough money? How can you help others even if you don't have your feet stand firmly on the ground? So that's the first wrong mindset that I see on many socialpreneurs. The second wrong mindset is most of socialpreneurs, because they're focusing so much on the social, they rely all the money coming from the donation. And what happened during this crisis? All the donation goes to fix the COVID issue. So less and less donation goes to the social business. Without donation, they cannot do anything. The third mindset that also I see on many socialpreneurs, they set up business just like what do we call it? Startups, the typical startups. They rely on funding. They rely so much on investors. So meaning, no funding, no work. No work, no money. And when, as we know, that funding is debt. No work means bigger debt. So many social entrepreneurs start their business instead of with purpose. They started with debt because their mindset is like the way they manage tech startups. So what happened during this crisis? Many social business facing a very difficult situation. They don't train themselves well in making money, in making a good business. They rely on so much on outside funding. So when there is no help from outside, they cannot create an impact. So yeah, this is a difficult situation. So if you ask me if the crisis is good or bad for the social business, I think it depends. I mean, if we see from the economic perspective, yes, it is. This situation is so bad. I mean, we cannot move. But if we see that from how we're supposed to change the mindset, this is an opportunity to change our mindset. This is the right time for all the socialpreneurs to rethink their strategy in building their companies. It is the right time for them to learn about how to be able to create an economic impact at the same time a social impact for the society. I believe that both economic and social impact can be works all together. And I also believe that all social business should be able to create a profitable business. So I think if we see that from the mindset changes, this is the right time for all socialpreneurs to rethink the strategy. I think crisis is always give us an opportunity to learn. So we can be better if we use this time as a learning opportunity.
Awesome, very well articulated, and some of the thoughts I can see that it resonate very well with Jack Sim. So I was interviewing him just a few days back, and Jack was having a lot of views which are very, very similar to you, where we have to start seeing impact as a business, not impact as just a social activity, to be happy about that I've done something for the world. So that's very, very well articulated, and I think this is a good learning for all those social entrepreneurs that start seeing it as a business. Don't just see it as a charity or philanthropy, because social business need strong business minds. So yeah, that's bring us to the second part of our discussion, coming closer home. So luckily, I love Indonesia, and in fact, other than India where I stay, last 3 years I spent most time in Indonesia, and I love your country, and it is a beautiful place to be at. If you see that Indonesia's economy has been growing at roughly 5% over past 4 to 5 years. Now you are seeing that it would be growing at around 2 to 2.5% for next year and a half. As you rightly said, that it is impacting in a big way in the employment. So if you see that last 3.5 months, we have seen close to 6 million people would be losing job. And here actually, most importantly, the textile sector, which employs a lot of people, close to 2.5 million women would be losing their jobs. How do you see the economy of Indonesia going forward in next couple of years? And do you see what are the specific areas where you see that there would be growth, and which are the specific areas, for example, tourism, that they would be able to sustain the pressure because of COVID?
Yeah. I think in general, economy has suffered. No, it's everywhere, and based on the latest prediction of our financial minister, that probably the growth of our economy will be minus. And what I see right now in Indonesia that impacted a lot because of this crisis, definitely everything that involving people moving and the crowd. For example, you mentioned about tourism. Tourism means hotel, airline, MICE, bar, restaurant, cinema, concert, mall, and all that. Sport is also suffer. There's no sport event. I think that will be all the year long. Consumer electronics is also going down. Automotive industry, banking definitely, education, because people shifting now to online education, construction, real estate, definitely people won't buy properties or anything. But at the same time, it also opened many opportunities to several industries like agriculture, ICT, technology, internet, health, medical, and then personal care, e-commerce. Not all e-commerce, but mostly to big e-commerce. They already have a proper infrastructure. Food, frozen food. So there are many that falling down, but at the same time, many sectors is also raising. So it is time for many startups, many business people to probably see what's the best opportunity that they can create right now from the rising trend globally. I think it's not only in Indonesia. So yeah, what I'm doing right now is empowering thousands of women using WhatsApp to start selling, to start creating economy from their home. They're selling all the agriculture products, food, and all that, and it's quite. I mean, this kind of opportunities only it's not only goes to the big business, but also to the micro business. So I think there are still several. I'm not saying many, but several opportunities that still quite open, big open for the micro business to grow.
No, that's very well articulated, and I strongly agree with you on aspect of agriculture. Indonesia is having beautiful, I'll say, agroclimatical zones, 17,000 odd islands which can produce any possible food you can grow on this earth. So yes, I strongly believe that 50 million farmers of Indonesia, they can participate far more in the economy and the growth of Indonesia going forward. Let me come a little bit closer to your own activities. I would like to understand from you a little bit on two aspects. One is that you are active in women empowerment a lot, and you see, like, the biggest crisis when we see such things happening in this part of the world, which is South Asia and Southeast Asia, is that actually, like, because of existing gap in the gender equality, those things become more difficult for women, right? Because predominantly these are the societies which are driven by male, and you suddenly found that in crisis, women suffer the most. How do you see that COVID impacting this balance of gender equality, where people like you were already doing a lot of activities, and suddenly you have one more thing added to already not that great situation? So how do you see the woman equality in these difficult times? I would also like you to, like, to touch upon the personal mobility. So you have been working a lot on mobility, and you see that what's happening to automobile sector. How do you see the personal mobility changing in like, in COVID scenario as well as post COVID scenario?
Okay. Woman is hit the hardest during the crisis. I mean, even before the crisis, woman is always on the second position in the society. So what I see right now in many countries, especially in developing countries, they don't involve women in making decisions. They don't involve women in tackling the crisis. So what we are trying to do right now, one is to push the government using our voice on social media to speak up about the women issues, what happened to women, and the economic impact that they faced right now. At the same time, we do the empowerment, direct empowerment to the grassroots, like Queenrides, like what Queenrides doing right now. We empower thousands of women to start working from home and making sure that they are safe at home, because along with the economic crisis, what also rising is a domestic abuse. So our platform is trying to help women to one is to stay involved in the economic development, but at the same time also making sure that they are safe from any domestic abuse during this quarantine. And this situation is not only it's not only happened in Indonesia. I think it's globally this economic crisis and also domestic abuse raising on women. So what the government have to do is making sure that there is a policy that engaging women, that understand that making sure that women involved in every decision, and making sure that every single action is something that gender friendly. I mean, it's helping not just women but also children. Because what I believe is when we help the weakest, that's the way we help the society. When we make sure the weakest group safe, we make sure that all the society are safe. So it is important, I think, like mentioned by UN, that every government needs to adapt any policies that gender sensitive, involving women in making decisions and making sure women safe in terms of economic, and also safe from domestic abuse. So those two things are, I think, the primary things that all government need to address.
And on
And
mobility,
about the mobility, automotive industry is the one of the industry that hit the hardest. Before any industry do the unemployment, the first industry that hit by COVID is tourism, and in Indonesia is automotive industry. So the next challenge, I think, for the mobility industry is how to be able to create a mobility that is safe and COVID friendly. I mean, WHO already declared that we cannot totally away from COVID. COVID will be our friends for forever. We have to make peace with COVID. So if the economy is started, I mean, people start doing the mobility, we have to make sure that every part of the mobility, the infrastructure, the system, the infrastructure and all that is COVID friendly, safe from COVID. For example, this is what we've done in Jakarta, that the government started to reduce number of people who goes with the MRT, and a limiting number of people who goes with MRT, making the right scheduling and all that, and making sure everyone who goes in the public transportation, they are using the health mask and all that. So it is important for the automotive industry and also the mobility industry to find a way to adapt with the situation. And I think there will be another challenge, which people starting to enjoy working from home because they don't have to deal with stress, and many companies decided not to have office anymore. So they started to let everyone work from home. So those kind of situation is also quite challenging, which I think the automotive industry, mobility industry needs to find a way to create a better business during this COVID era.
Awesome. So I understand the challenge of Jakarta and mobility in Jakarta. Already it was a little bit of challenge, which was easing up after MRT. So like, Jakarta before MRT and after MRT, there has been a lot of difference. But suddenly we again have COVID where the policymakers will have to refine tune the things. I would also like to now coming a little bit closer to your city itself. Jakarta is the biggest city economy in South Asia. How do you see on an individual as a citizen of Jakarta, the city coping with the challenge of COVID, how people have been reacting? I would also understand from you on a personal basis how you cope up with this challenge of lockdown, because Jakarta loves to eat food outside. Jakarta loves to meet people. Jakarta is so vibrant. Or suddenly, that is snatched away from a beautiful city. So on a personal as well as a citizen of a beautiful city, how you have coped up with these challenges?
How Jakarta coping with the COVID? Interesting, because I think the governor works so hard on making sure that the number of COVID passion is decreasing, and the curve on in Jakarta itself is flattened, but the curve outside Jakarta is increasing because people start going out from Jakarta to outside Jakarta, because we almost face the mudik, the Ramadan. So Jakarta is have been doing well in tackling the COVID, but I think this challenge also happened in India, where people's discipline is one of the biggest challenge in reducing flattening the curve. So during the lockdown, the semi-lockdown, I'm not saying lockdown because we don't have lockdowns. I call it micro lockdown or semi-lockdown, because people still can go outside, but in a very minimum way. We still can see in some places the traffic jam, the crowd, and even I just saw like a couple minutes ago before we had this interview that the airport is packed of people. So I cannot blame the people, because the regulation is also quite confusing. So yeah, I think Jakarta is not only tackled by the governor, but also the president. So it's like two powerful people trying to get influence on what happened to these big cities. Jakarta is like 5 times bigger than Singapore. So yeah, it's quite complex in managing this city. It's quite complex, quite challenging, but yet many opportunities in Jakarta. I cannot say a lot because it's involving two powerful government, which they are, I believe they are trying to do the best for their people, but well, yeah, many challenging in their regulation.
No, I understand the message behind what you are saying. In fact, I love to be in Jakarta. I'm just waiting things to settle down. And the same challenges you are facing in Jakarta, we face in Mumbai and Delhi. And as I love when you raise this point that a lot of people don't understand that Jakarta is 5 times bigger than Singapore. Jakarta is having far more number of people than Singapore. Another thing is that Jakarta is having porous borders with other provinces of Indonesia. So there is a lot of movement in and out, which is not regulated or can't be regulated in Jakarta, right? Unlike in Singapore, which is like a city country. So with all its challenge, Jakarta has been doing awesome, and I love your city. Believe me, I just love Jakarta. I look forward to being Jakarta soon. So it brings us to our last section, where actually we want you to talk about 4 or 5 pointed action points for startup and entrepreneurs, what to do in current time, so that during COVID and post-COVID, they still survive and they still keep looking at the growth as a vision.
Yeah, I think for social business and all the startup founders, one thing that we must understand, that this difficult situation is not only happened to you, but it happened to everyone. It impacts everyone. It impacts every business. So you're not alone. That's the first thing that we all have to understand. And during this situation, the most important is to make sure we maintain the cash. Cash is the king. So make sure you renegotiate the debt, spend only for basic, stay frugal, make sure you have all the cash, at least like for until end of this year. Uh, you don't have to spend for something additional, just spend for basic, be frugal as you can. And in general, business will slow down, but it doesn't mean we have to lose our focus. Just focus with your business, all the improvement, all the learning opportunities, all the impact that you are about to create. And this is what I see from many founders who I think I found many founders that they are just too hard to themselves during this crisis. Just try a bit relax. Don't be too hard to yourself because you are not a project. Many motivators says that you have to acquire new skills during this COVID era. For me, that's nonsense. We don't have to acquire any skill. If there is one skill that we need to acquire, maybe it's the skill to be peace with ourselves. Because at the end, what we need to maintain during this COVID, during this crisis, first is our mental health. Second is our health. So to be able to maintain two things, what I experience is, first we have to notice. If we are under pressure, we are stressed, then just admit it. There's a situation a couple weeks before we speak. So I had like headache all the time because I've been like 3 months at home. I didn't go anywhere, and I don't hug anyone. I mean I love hugging people, and I cannot hug anyone like for 3 months. And those kind of situation, somehow I didn't notice that it was affect to my physical. So I feel like I had a headache all the time, and all my body feel painful. And I was like, what happened? I thought I need more sport, I need more exercise. But then I was like, hey, I've been doing exercise all the time. I've been doing exercise every day. Even though I've been staying at home, but my body is quite physically active. And then my friends told me, Iim, you know, one of the indication when if you are having stress or anxiety, if you are stressed, is you feel a headache all the time with no reason. And then I start to browse whether the information was correct. Then I found out from one of the medical journal that one of the indication you are having stress is the reaction on your body. And since I understand that I have stress, so I start to cope with that. I mean, I admit it, I notice the stress, I admit it, and I try to find a way to cope with it. And that also the things that we need to discipline to practice it to ourselves. Sometimes we're just too busy. All this time we're just too busy. Like you, Deepak, and me, we have the same pattern. We travel all over the world every month. We forgot to take rest. We don't even know how to take rest, right? And so yeah, I think this is the time to relax, accept the situation, accept if you are stressed, and fine with it. You're not alone. It happens to everyone. And cope with it. Try to find a way to cope with it. I myself, what I did was doing something that I never done before. Like I learned dancing from YouTube, and then I all this time I didn't have a chance to listen to music. But I was like 2 years. I never spent time sitting alone in the balcony, listening music, enjoying the stars at night and all that. So I started doing it. And those kind of things is a kind of very relaxing and help me to cope with the situation. I think uh, all the founders, I understand how tough the business right now, how tough your situation. We all face the same situation. What we have to do is making sure that our mental health is in a good situation, and our health, also our family, they all in a good situation. It doesn't matter. You may lose the money, but don't lose your mind.
That's an awesome advice, and believe me, it has big learning for me as well. Hearing what you said just now, so keeping peace with yourself is very very important before business. So thanks, Iim, a lot for sharing your perspective and your views. I found this thing very insightful, and I learned a lot from it. And I'm very sure that the audience would also learn and have action points to take home too. Terima kasih, Iim. God bless.
Okay. Thank you.